acres of land. And he said, I owe, at 70,000 rupees an acre, I owe 150,000 rupees. And my entire crop has been washed away. And I don't know what to do. When the water settles, I wouldn't have the money for seed, nor would I have money for fertilizers. So I don't know where I would go. So mother bearing the child doesn't know where she would go. The farmer standing by the washed away crop doesn't know where he would go. A father helplessly looking at his young child whose mud house got washed away doesn't know what to tell his child. Now that's behind all of these Cronbach alphas and all of these vulnerability reports. That's what makes life and vulnerability real. I compare this with this hotel. I walk around in F6 and diplomatic enclave where I get invited every now and then. And I go to Gulberg in Lahore, and I go to Clifton in Defense in Karachi, and similar localities everywhere. I go around and I hear about the great leaders that we had, Dr. Mahbubul Haq and A.G.N. Qazi, who made these brilliant developmental plans, who someone stole, they tell me, some country, Korea or someone else, and they are where they are right now. And I see the results of that too. I see a magnificent infrastructure, broken at some places, bipolar perhaps, but the country is all right. I see technologies, I see the demonstration of the new technologies that we recently did in the way of space technologies. I look at the Nobel laureates that we have, Dr. Abdus Salam and a bunch of others. I see all of this. And then I wonder, and people like myself, the question is primarily to me, did it not imagine or cross our imagination that a kid should be able to go to school, a mother in the birthing process should not die, a father should not look into the empty eyes of his child without answers to questions of what hit me last night, and what happened to my sister, and where is my house, and where is my school, and what do I do about it now? So I find lopsidedness. Sometimes I feel it's the lack of imagination. For a country that has achieved what we have achieved in the way of nuclear technology, missile technology, space technology, Nobel laureates, it didn't cross our mind that a kid should be able to go open up a tap and drink a glass of water. Isn't it crazy? Isn't it crazy? What does it take to store water, to put a pipe and make sure people have safe drinking water? Even you, us sitting here, look at the bottles. This just tells you here in the heart, the most expensive real estate of Pakistan, no one would dare to go and drink a glass of water from the tap. So why did it not cross our imagination? So I wonder if this is the lack of will. I wonder if this is the lack of imagination. Or I wonder if this is an issue of justice and rights, which are very poorly articulated. I read the report and I found out that there are, even the best districts. You just read about the best districts, forget about the most vulnerable ones. Just read the report and see what is available in the best districts. And that would tell you the story. Now that's not a good story. Not the bad districts, the good districts. Even that is not a good story. But the worst part is the lopsidedness in the report. Can you imagine that 17 out of 20 worst districts in Pakistan are in Balochistan? 17? Don't we see some kind of lopsidedness here? And the additional 2 are in what was erstwhile FATA. There you go. That tells you where the vulnerabilities are. That tells you a bit of the real story. 10 million people. 10 million people live in these 20 districts. 10 million people is more than the population of most countries of the world. 10 million people is a small to mid-sized country. And these people, 10 million people, are living in this most devastated, most vulnerable districts, with 2 million mothers of childbearing age who do not know in the process of giving birth whether they're going to live or die. You read the infant mortality rates. With 2 million kids who are under the age of 5 who do not know if they're going to have access to school or access to hope or livelihood. So it was a very eye-opening report. Thank you very much. I read the description of these. I tried to, I think more pictorially, so I started to kind of imagine all of those pictures that I just shared with you. And I realized that 65% of the population in these 20 districts was living in makeshift arrangements. No homes. No homes. 65% of the population, 10 million people, is 6.5 million people who are living in makeshift arrangements. About 50%, 5 million people do not have any access to safe drinking water, or drinking water for that matter. In Jhalmaksi, one of the districts, 97%, 97, not 9.7, 97% of the people are living in mud houses. So, sad. Sad is what comes to my mind. In Balochistan overall, if you want to get the overall picture, about 2/3 of the kids are not enrolled, about 68%, some odd number like that. I mean, I may be a little bit off on numbers, but not a whole lot. And there are only 2.7%, less than 3% schools that have water, electricity, walls, latrine. So, and Balochistan is Balochistan. If you look at overall Pakistan, about a fourth of children, 1/4 of the children are not going to school, not enrolled. So these things, to me, are not making sense. And therefore, it's not a surprise that on Human Development Index, we are 164, about 189 countries, 189 or 190 countries now, 164. And I, this morning when I got up and I said, what would be a bad number? And when I looked at the SDG report, I found out that out of 167 countries reporting, we are 140 some. And when you look at this report and you look at those indices, you start to get the picture. So I started to ask myself last night, what is behind all of this? And I found, obviously overnight, she gave me almost like a pop quiz exam. So, I don't think I'd be able to give you profound answers, but I think one of the major problems that we have is the fiscal structure and governance. We reward population, not poverty. When you reward population and not poverty, not disenfranchisement, then what are you going to get? You're going to get population. There you go. What you reward, you get. In your allocations, if you reward population, you're going to get population. If you rewarded prosperity, you would get prosperity. So to me, when I started to draw down the picture, it became very clear that we're rewarding the wrong thing. So in terms of our governance and in terms of our fiscal structure right now is rewarding population growth. More you have, more money you get. And therefore the population is increasing and so is vulnerability, because vulnerability doesn't get rewarded. So that's the first kind of root cause that came to my mind. The second is the fiscal space. I'm so glad the finance minister is gone. because I'm going to quote wrong numbers and he would have corrected me every step of the way. But broadly, I'm not talking about precision. I'm talking about strategic direction. We collect about 16 trillion, I think, 16 trillion rupees is the revenue. 8 to 8.5 goes to the provinces, 8 to 8.5 goes into debt servicing, and then even post-devolution, the federal government is spending 650 billion in protection and health and education, which is not our job. Nothing is left. How do you run a government? You have 16 total. I could be off, pardon me for that. 8 to 8.5 goes to provinces, 8 to 8.5 goes into debt, 650 goes into protection, out, zero remainder. So one is the fiscal structure and governance, and the other is the fiscal space. And we absolutely need to create this fiscal space if we want to make these solutions to these vulnerabilities real. Otherwise, it would just be another conference. The third issue is local bodies. The problems are localized. You've just identified district and tehsil level problems, and the allocations are federal and provincial. So if you're going to solve the district level problems, you need to empower the districts and local bodies to solve the problems that exist in those districts. This is common sense, but beyond common sense, just look at the span of control. One officer of the state can control how much? How many reports can you take in a day? How many allocations can you make in a day? How many decisions? How many transfers? How many policies? How can you make them when the administrative units do not empower local bodies? So the problems are local. The solutions have to be local. If you have to carry your local problem all the way to some headquarter, where if you're lucky, and you know every powerful man in the world, you'd get 15 minutes with the secretary. How are your problems going to get solved? We'll have to empower. We'll have to devolve. We'll have to empower the local bodies to make sure that the local solutions come forth. And it's not a complicated problem. I mean, I'm serious. I read the report and I said, where is that formula of physics that I don't understand? Some landing rover on Mars or something like that, which is problematic. What are we asking for? A dignified life? How complicated can a dignified life be? Our Prime Minister is committed to that dignified life. Our Prime Minister, when I walk up to him, he tells me just in one paragraph, he tells me what he expects from every minister in his cabinet. Dignified life. A person coming out, educated person coming out, educated person coming out, educated, getting a job. A job that allows for that person, women perhaps more, but definitely equal. Gives them an opportunity to send their kids to school. That's his vision. A job that allows them to take care of their ailing parents and grandparents, a hospital or a clinic or a preventive healthcare system that is right there at the doorsteps. And is decent enough for all of us to walk into it and make sure, or have confidence that our mothers, our fathers, our grandfathers, they're going to be treated with dignity and they're going to be treated well in the way of health. Just making sure that the village or the town or the city, vulnerable or not, where they're living is not going to get devastated, and no kid is going to look at his father with empty eyes, filled with fear. And an infrastructure that is decent infrastructure that allows for mobility, because mobility often is the economic opportunity for the poor. How difficult can this be? There's such a romantic single paragraph that informs the vision of our Prime Minister, the custody of which has been given to every minister and we committed to it. I've given you the fiscal constraints, but those constraints do not stand in our way. We are not in the business, this government is not in the business of figuring out what can we do.